Okay, so basically for security related aspects, who handles the security? The security manager, obviously, right? So the security manager, whoever is there, should have the role IT security manager. Okay, so whoever has this IT security manager will be responsible for handling the security of the Fusion applications. Okay, so they will be responsible for creating, because these implementation consultants are responsible for creating the application users, right? So for which application user, what type of security has to be given, will you have to choose the roles and then give the appropriate security. So whom do you give the security? You give the security to the users of the application, right? So where do you find the security related thing? For security related thing, you have to go to tools and security console. So whoever has the IT security manager role, only they will be seeing this particular thing. Others will not see. So things related to security will start from here. We have different types of roles which are available, like abstract roles, job roles, duty roles, data roles, privileges. All these roles are there over here. Then with respect to users and user accounts, you have everything over here. So all these implementation consultant users, if you just search over here, on the every environment, you will see these implementation consultant users. Now, for every implementation consultant user, whoever is there, you can see what are the roles which are available and just get an understanding of the roles. So you see that this user has application implementation consultant, benefits admin, benefits manager, compensation admin, compensation analyst, compensation manager, employee role, HR specialist, IT recruiter, chatbot, custom role, then IT security manager, integration specialist, okay, then payroll admin, payroll manager, then recruiter, recruiting admin, time and labor manager. Now, these are different types of roles which are there. Okay, so some of the roles you see they end with data, some of the roles you see they end with job, some of the roles you see they end with abstract. So any role which ends with abstract is an abstract role. Any role which ends with data, the default ones, these are data roles, and any role which ends with job, they are job roles as such. Okay, so now similarly you can only add roles over here. Okay, you cannot add privileges. So we'll see where all those things fit into. Okay, so the first thing we are going to see is how to create a normal user account over here without any roles, and log into that instance and see what are the things do you see on the UI. All right, so let us add a user account over here. So this user account, as I said, it need not always be associated with a person. Person means an employee in the company. It is need not always be associated with a person, right? Or it can be associated with a worker. Worker means an active employee. Okay, worker means an active employee in the system. Now, what you got to understand over here is you don't have to create user account manually for everybody. When you hire the employee, the user account gets created automatically. There is a setting for that. We will see that when we go into global HR. So I don't think that, okay, if there are 10,000 employees in the company, for every employee, we have to create the user account manually like this. No. So first thing is associated person type has to be none, and user category. The user category, you can create your new user categories over here. So what is the purpose of user category? To differentiate users, to have password complexity rules, to have the password notification templates or user account notification templates. So a lot of things are there over there. So we'll see that when we go into user categories. So let me create a user account and then say this is first, okay, and this is last. So come to the user name, you see that it got generated automatically. So it got generated with the first name dot last name. So where is this rule? Again, this rule is there in the user category, which you define over here. Okay, let me give the password of this. So we'll say welcome 123. I'll give welcome 123. Okay, now I'm not adding any role over here. Okay, I'm not adding any role. Add role allows you to add roles to this user. Remove all roles removes all the roles. Add auto provision roles. Auto provision roles, we'll talk about it later, maybe in tomorrow's session. But first, now just understand that I'm not adding any roles to this particular user account. So I have just created a user account. That's all. A user of this particular application. Now, what do? I log in, I log out of this particular user and log in as I log in as the user which I have created. So see what is going to happen. So when you log into the instance, do you see any menus over here? So many menus are not there, right? These are just normal user related menu entries which you see over here. So you see over here, see, me has only social and my CV. Tools has only these things, right? But you cannot configure anything. So in this user account, normal user account, if whatever functions you don't want as an organization, if you don't want your employees to view, you can hide these. Uh, you can hide these functions using customization as well. So that's not a problem. Okay, but just understand that what you are trying to showcase over here is you don't have any, you don't have access to any functions or any menus if you have just created a user account because you didn't add any roles. Now what we'll do is we'll add a role to this particular user account and then see how does. So go to security manager or security console. Go to user tab, search for your user and go to that user. Now add the role. So when you add a role, it will ask me what role to add. So I want to add a HR specialist role. Okay, so we'll talk about what are these different types of job roles and what is the understanding of those things. Okay, so Aura per human resource HR specialist job role. So just hold on some of your questions now. I'm just adding a HR specialist job role. Okay, so let me save and close this. So I just added a job role now. Now I'll say done. Sometimes the moment you add the role, the security tables will get populated with the security of the user and you don't have to do anything else. Just log out and log in, you will be able to view the changes in the security. But sometimes what happens is, do you see a pop-up which is coming up over here? No, 1 second. Let me go to the home page. Come back to tools, security console. The pop-up is not coming over here. So what we'll do is we'll log out of this particular user account. And then log in as our first dot last user. And so most of the times the changes do get reflected immediately, but sometimes you may have to run some job. So what is that job? So you see the changes are not reflecting over here, right? Usually the changes get reflected but when we add the roles over there. So now what you have to do is you go back to the implementation login user. And I was suppressing a warning when I was opening security console or a pop-up, right? Now you will get that pop-up. You read what is there in that pop-up basically. So go to tools, security console. Do you see a pop-up or a warning which came over here? The import user and role security data process hasn't completed successfully in the last 24 hours. So you might want to run it now. So this is where you have to go and run some ESS job. So where do you run ESS job? In the schedule process. So when you run some scheduled process. You can submit a new process or an ESS job. You can say run user and role, not this. Import user and role application security data. Okay, so submit this. It imports the user and role data from LDAP and store it in the application security tables. So when I submit this ESS job over here, there are no input parameters. And then I can also schedule this ESS job by going into advanced options and schedule it using a schedule. That schedule can be up to the customer. They can schedule once in a day, once in an hour, once in a week, once in a month, once in a user defined schedule, or whatever be the schedule as such. Okay, they can schedule it or they can run ad hoc only once. Then you can also notify the recipient based on a condition, whether it fails or whether it succeeds, or every time whether it is completed. Okay. Or if you don't want to go to schedule, then just look at the basic inputs. If there are no inputs, then just say submit. This will submit a concurrent request. For those of you who are aware of EBS, it will submit a concurrent request or an ESS job. Now, these ESS jobs are running in the ESS server. So I told you about different types of servers, right? So these are running in the ESS server. Now, until this particular job completes, right, that security related changes will not be visible in that particular user. Okay, so for now, what we'll do is um, we'll wait for a few minutes and then we will go back to that particular user account. Okay, so you can see that the user which we created, the security of that user, we are adding the roles. Okay, now let us understand what are the different types of. I can add any number of roles over there. Okay, I just showed you that. I added an HR specialist job role. Now, before we add any further roles, let us understand what are the different types of roles which are there. Okay, so the first type of role is the abstract role. What is an abstract role? As the name indicates, it is abstract in nature. That means, what do you mean by abstraction? This concept is there even in Java. So people who are aware of Java, you have abstract classes, abstract methods, and all those things. So abstract means it hides something. What does it hide? So bring that concept of the role over here. What does it hide? Some of the implementations of the methods, right? It hides. So abstract class will contain abstract methods, and those methods will be implemented by the inheriting classes. So same concept, you try to bring it in the roles also. So here, if you see abstract roles means, here if you see abstract roles means the roles which are generic in nature from an enterprise perspective or from an organization perspective, they are called abstract roles. So what do they abstract? So let us see, and what are the different types of abstract roles which are there. So the first role we can see, we can call it as employee. So if I give you a statement that I am an employee of an XYZ corporation company, does that give you any information about what is the job I do in that company? No, right? It doesn't give you any information. I can be a receptionist, I can be an admin, I can be a HR person, I can be a payroll person. It doesn't give you any information about the team I work, about the job I do, and all those things. Right? So employee is an abstract role. It abstracts the information from the user, whomever I'm saying. Okay. If I say I'm an employee of so and so company, it doesn't give you any information. Similarly, if I say I am an ex-employee from a particular company, it doesn't give you any information. Similarly, if I say contingent worker, what is a contingent worker? A short-term worker, right? They work for 6 months or 4 months or few months and then they leave. So those type of workers are called contingent workers. So if I say I was a contingent worker in this particular company or I'm a contingent worker in this company, it doesn't give you any information about what work I do. Then similarly, line manager. If I say I'm a manager in this company, still that doesn't give you any information. If I say I'm a recruiter in that particular company, in which team you recruit, for what positions you recruit, what is your job role, what functions you have, no, it doesn't give you any idea. So these type of roles which doesn't give you or which abstract certain data or which abstract certain information from the end user, these type of roles are called abstract roles. Now tell me, every employee in the company must have the employee role. Every manager in the company must have the line manager role. Every ex-employee from that company must have the ex-employee role. Right? So what are we saying? Every employee in the company must have at least one abstract role. Every employee in the company must have at least one abstract role. All right. So now you can tell me one thing. The user account which we have created, if I go and add this employee abstract role to that user, will that user become an employee in the company? No. The user will not become an employee in the company just because you have added an employee role. So you have to understand that the difference between the user account and whether that user account is associated with a person or user account is not associated with that particular person in the company. If it is just a user, or is it user account got created because that a person is an employee in that company. So just by adding a role, you should understand that you will only get access to the function, but you may not have proper access because you are still not an employee in that company. So for an employee in that company, automatically the employee role gets added. How it gets added, we'll see later. So you have to understand that the moment you add a role, it is not necessary that that particular role, that particular person will become an employee in that company. You should have a employee record in that company to which you have to assign the roles. Okay, just adding it to a user account will not suffice. Now that is an abstract role. Now come down one level. So we'll go to the next roles, which is job roles. So whenever we say job role, you talk about the job over there. Okay, you are just opening up from abstract. So I say, let's say, what are different types of jobs you have? Okay, HR, human resources, payroll, compensation, benefits, time and labor, right? What do you call? What are the other jobs you have? Benefits, payroll, compensation, um, then recruitment, time and labor, talent. So different types of or payroll, benefits, compensation, whatever it is. So you have different types of jobs. So if I tell you that I am a HR, I am doing in HR department in that company, still it doesn't give me full information about the work I do, but at least it gives you some information that, okay, you belong to a HR department. Now I'll say I'm a payroll, I belong to a payroll department. No, it doesn't give you full information, or it gives you some information. I say I'm a compensation. I work in compensation department in that particular company, or I work in benefits department in that company. Now you have some keywords which Oracle gives you for the roles. Okay. So what are those keywords? Admin or administrator, analyst, manager, specialist. So these four keywords are there, right? You permute these four keywords with the jobs which are there. So HR, you permute all these four, you get HR admin, HR analyst, HR manager, HR specialist. So these are the job roles. So you say, I work as a human resource admin in this particular company. You say, I am a HR analyst in this company. I'm a HR specialist in this company. Or you say, I'm a payroll manager, payroll admin. Or you say compensation admin, compensation specialist. Or you say, I'm a benefits admin, benefits manager, or time and labor admin, time and labor manager. So these keywords, whichever are there, you permute onto the jobs which are there in that company, you will get the job roles. Okay. Now, what are the next level? One job has many duties, right? So you will have duty roles. One job has many duties. So a HR admin will have some duties, HR analyst will have some duties, HR manager will have some duties, HR specialist will have some duties. Now there is a difference between these admin, analyst, specialist, and all those things. So analyst usually goes on analytical data. That means usually they will have access to reports. They won't be running any process, but they will just have access to the reports. But a specialist will have access to the may not have access to the reports, but he can run various processes. Okay, he may not have access to the reports, but he can run various processes. Right? It depends on what is the job and what level of the roles you have and all those things. Okay, so these job roles, whenever you come to job role, you can see you have these various type of job roles. Now you can ask me some questions. How do you know what are the list of predefined roles which are there in the system? Predefined means which are delivered by Oracle. So for that, there is a small trick. Okay, any predefined role will always start with aura underscore. Any predefined role will always start with aura underscore, indicating that it is delivered by Oracle. Point one. Point two, if you are searching for a role in human resources, these are the 3-letter keywords for every module in the application. So using these keywords, you can search for any role. Let's say I want to search for roles in HR area. So for keyword is per, I want to search for HR specific roles. So I can search aura underscore per, and it will give me all the roles which are there in HR. I want to search the roles in payroll. So aura underscore pay, benefits, Ben, compensation, CMP, FND related. Either it can be FND or application setup and maintenance, ASM, goals, HRG, absences, ANC, recruitment, IRC, HXT, time and labor, HRC, talent. All right. So like these 3-letter keywords are fixed for these particular modules. Now, any table, if you are looking into benefits, any table name will start with Ben underscore. If you are looking in payroll, any table name will start with pay underscore. If you are looking in human resources, table name will start with per. If you are looking in absences, table names, role names, everything, right? Everything will start with ANC, or it could be aura underscore ANC. All right. So remember these keywords. Once if you see, I mean, once or twice if you see, it will be easy to recollect these things. So if you want to search for anything predefined, then you have to search with aura underscore per. And that's exactly the reason why I searched with aura underscore per over here when I added the role. So now if you see, if you want to search for an abstract role over here, right? Let's see what are the abstract roles which are there in human resources. So if you see, I just type in enter over here, you can see the list over here. Basic recruiter, contingent worker, employee, ex-worker, okay, executive manager, line manager, pending worker. What is a pending worker? A pending worker is a future active worker in the employee. That means, let's say you have recruitment, you have a job which is posted, the candidates. Now you call these people as candidates as long as they are not inside the company. Okay, so the candidate applies for that job posting. That candidate is interviewed. That candidate is going through various rounds of interviews. The candidate is selected. The candidate is given the offer. The candidate accepts the offer and gives a date. And then in recruiting, you have a process called move to HR, which will move that candidate to a pending worker in HR. And this pending worker creation is the interface between the HR and the recruitment modules. So when you run that move to HR process, it is going to convert that candidate into a pending worker and with a proposed start date in future. So that candidate or that pending worker will become a worker later when he actually joins the company by running a process for converting pending workers to workers. So this is the pending worker role. So anybody who is in that stage, who have not yet been hired, but who said that I am going to join your company on a proposed date, you get a pending worker. So you can have a pending worker and you can also have a pending contingent worker also. That means that worker who is joining need not always be an employee. He can also be a contingent worker. Okay, then you have some recruiter and all those things. So these are the roles, or these are the abstract roles which are there. Now if you want to see, is there any abstract role in compensation? Right, you can just search. So compensation approver is an abstract role. Then do you want to see if there are any payroll related abstract roles? No. Do you want to see if there are benefits related abstract roles? No. Do you want to see if there are FND related? Yes. Anonymous user, okay, authenticated user, business flow troubleshooting user. So FND has that. Then you want to see application setup and maintenance. So you see what are the abstract role? Application implementation administrator, export import functional setups, functional setup user. Now, these roles are important for you to know what are the different types of roles given the keywords. So anybody who is implementing Fusion HCM, must have this application implementation administrator. Now, yes, I have this role, but does it give you full information about what I am implementing? No. That's why it is an abstract role. So a few things related to the implementation, those things will be there in this role. And after this, you have human capital management or HCM application implementation consultant role. So similarly, you will have financials also will have their own roles. So again, individual modules will have their own roles as such over there. So understanding what roles, what level of the roles, whether it's an abstract or a job role, you have to get it from here, right? So once you know all these things, right? Okay, this instance is gone now. So once this is, once you have seen the abstract roles, you can also see the job roles. So let us now look at the job roles over here. So when I say job, I can search for what are the predefined roles which are present in human resources. So what are the predefined roles? HR analyst, HR manager, HR specialist, and recruiting admin. So all these job roles, they end with underscore job. All the abstract roles, they end with underscore abstract. Now I want to see what are the job roles which are there in payroll. So you see admin, manager. So permute the keywords over here. Now let us see what are there in benefits. You see benefits admin, benefits manager, benefits specialist. Now let us see what are the things which are there in compensation. You see compensation admin, compensation analyst, compensation manager, compensation specialist. Okay. Then you see HXT. So this is time and labor admin, time and labor manager, right? So like that, if you search with the keywords, you would get the permuted values. Or if you want to see what are the job roles in F&D. So you see application administrator job role, application developer job role, diagnostics administrator. So to enable diagnostics, run diagnostics, to enable run diagnostics report, you should have this admin role, right? Diagnostic advanced user, diagnostics regular user, diagnostics viewer. So somebody whom you don't want to run, but they only want to view, you can have this a job role. So you can understand whether it's a job role or a duty role or abstract role. So you see application implementation consultant, implementation manager. Okay, then similarly you have payroll also we have seen. Okay, compensation benefits. So like that, you can search for all the job roles. Okay, now let's say you search for these job roles or underscore per, you have all only 4 types of job roles here. Okay, now for any of these roles, all right, you can, for any of these abstract roles or job roles or duty roles, you can see there is an action link over here. So in that action link, what you can do is you can edit, you can copy. Okay, you can edit, you can copy, you can compare two roles, and you can simulate navigator. So how do you make use of these things as a nav user? How do you make use of these things as a nav user? Now the thing over here is the predefined roles, you cannot edit it directly. Okay, you must copy the role, and then only if you want to remove anything, you can remove. Now one thing you have to understand is whatever may be the type of role you are searching, these roles are all hierarchical roles. Meaning, if I am searching for a role, that role inherits some other roles. These roles further inherit some other roles. Those roles further inherit some other roles. At the end, all the roles will inherit some privileges. All the roles will inherit some privileges. So the leaves can be a leaf can be a role, a leaf can be a privilege. Okay, so you see here you have inherited by role, inherited by role code, and then you can see the role names. So every task, we discussed that at the end of the day, what do you mean by implementing? Implementing means implementing the tasks associated with that particular module. Every task will have a role associated with it. If you have that role in that role hierarchy, which gives access to the task, you will get access to the task. Then the next question which you can ask is, how do I know which are the tasks which this particular role will give you access? So then you have to go to simulate navigator. So when you say simulate navigator, it will tell you what work areas or what menu entries you will get access to the moment you have that role. Okay, you are simulating the navigator. What is navigator? This is navigator. So you are simulating the navigator as if you have this particular role, and then it gives you and tells you what are the menus and what are the menu entries you have access to. So if you see over here for a HR specialist, you see sales, these are all related to sales. Right? These are the functions, menu entries related to sales. So you can see the icons over here. There is a lock icon, there is a warning icon. Okay, if you have a lock icon, then anybody who has this role will not have access to this particular menu entry or function. That is how you have to understand it. Now, a HR specialist is a kind of an admin role. So we said that anything related to admin, you will find it in my client groups. So you see in my client groups, for most of the tasks which are there or work areas which are there, you see that there is no lock. That means this particular HR specialist will have access to these particular tasks under my client groups. Now, will a HR specialist have access to my team? So you can see me and my team over here. So what is me? We said me is for employee self-service function. So if that HR specialist is an employee, only then he will have access. But as such, a HR specialist will not have access to any of these functions over here. Now, similarly, manager, my team means line manager, right? So a HR specialist will not have access to my team unless that particular specialist is a manager. Then similarly, supply chain related stuff, similarly tools, right? A HR specialist will have access to, you see, they have access to certain things, right? So this security console will not be visible to a HR specialist because security console will only be visible to IT security manager role. Okay, that's why there is no access to this one. Then you can ask me, how does this implementation user have access? That is because this implementation user has IT security manager role. That's why the access is there. All right. So like this, every menu and the menu entry inside that, you can find out whether that role has access or not. Now, if it is confusing to see all over here, you can just see which are the menus which the access is granted to a HR specialist. So the moment I add this HR specialist job role to the user account, you will see that this menu comes over there. You will see that this menu comes over there. And you can see these functions under that menu or work areas under that menu. So simulate navigator can be applied on any role, right? Simulate navigator can be applied on any role as such. So for any role, you can apply the simulate navigator and find out what they have access. So basically, what is a role? It is a hierarchical, a tree sort of a thing from top to bottom where the access is given, right? This role inherits some other roles. These roles inherit some other roles. These roles inherit some other roles, and like that it will go on until you have a leaf role or a leaf privilege as such. Okay, all right. So this is how you can search for the job roles. Now come to the duty roles. So I said one job is going to have many duties. Now if you want to find out what are the duties in the human resources area, so you will have a lot of duties, right? A HR specialist duty could be there, HR analyst duty could be there. All of them will be combined. So if you see, there are 79 duties. Okay, access journey by worker, access person spotlight, address job offer, then contingent worker addition duty. Duty means what is your, I mean, what you can do if you have that job role, that is called duty. What are your duties, right? You can hire. You see duty roles, they end with underscore duty. Okay, then you can hire. Okay, then you can have REST services. You can use REST service for that particular person. Okay, you can using that user account who has this particular duty role, you could make use of the user account for hiring. You can create extract definitions. You can, if you have a journey builder, then you get access to the journey builder duty role. Okay, link username to person. So every menu entry or every work area will be guarded by a role or a privilege. Okay, will be guarded by a role or a privilege. So if you have roles which give you access to that role hierarchy, every role is a role hierarchy. So if you have a role, you will have access to the role hierarchy, and that role hierarchy will give you access to whatever tasks which are needed for you to and perform under that particular job role. So like this, you can see job roles will have the duty roles because every job is going to have duty. Now you may want to search what are the duty roles which are there in payroll. Then you will see a lot of duty roles: submitting a flow, accessing the flow, loading the batch, running the payroll calculations, all these things. Then you have completeness confirmation. So payroll implementation. So somebody who is implementing payroll will have implementation payroll. Similarly, somebody who's implementing absences will have absence implementation duty role. So duty roles are going to be there for every module, and the functions inside every module, you're going to have the duty roles. Now tell me, for the user account which we created, okay, for the user account which we created, the environment has changed. So let me again create the user account over here. For the user account which we created, okay, what type of roles you can add? What type of roles you can add? Can we add abstract role? Yes. Can we add job role? Yes. Can we add duty role? Yes. Then what is the difference between adding these three roles? So when I add an abstract role, it gives you access to the functions for that particular role as such. So as an employee, what functions I can access? It will give you access to that role. When I add a job role, it will give you access to that particular job specific, all the functions of that job. It is going to give you the access. Now, when I add a duty role, okay, then it gives me access to only those tasks which help you to perform that duty alone, because one job has many duties. Okay, adding a job role is different, adding a duty role is different. Sometimes, some cases you might want to just add one duty role instead of adding the entire job role, which gives you access to a lot of duties. Okay. So that way you can just add a duty role as such. So that's how you add it. Now let us log out of this particular user and see what access this user has got because of the role which I have provided over here. So we have first dot last password welcome 123. So you see, when you simulated the navigator, there was one function under benefits which gave you access to plan configuration, and there were many functions under my client groups or work areas where the access was there. Okay, so you see that by adding a role, you get access to some of the functions or the work areas which give access to that role. Now, because this HR specialist is not a benefits admin, he will not have access to a plan enrollments, plan configuration, and all those things which you saw in the implementation consultant user, because that implementation consultant user had benefits admin, benefits manager, benefits specialist. Now this user does not have all those, so he is not getting access to those particular work areas under benefits admin. So as a HR specialist, I can only configure the plans under benefits, but I cannot enroll or look into the reports and all those things. If I want to give access to those things, then I must give access to benefits admin, benefits related rules, and all those things. Okay, so do you understand now how roles are giving access to the functions on the UI? Any doubts in these? Now you can ask me, how do I remember so many roles and the role hierarchies? You don't have to remember these. You have a security reference guide, which is there in documents.oracle.com. That security reference guide will tell you what are the different job roles, what are the duties. So every job role, whichever is there over here, or abstract role, whichever is there, it will give you what are the hierarchy. This role hierarchy, you can see that this employee role inherits these roles directly or indirectly. So whenever I add an employee role, I will get access to all the tasks which are guarded by these particular roles. Okay. Now, let's say I add an employee role, or let's say I don't want I'm adding an employee role, but I may be a Canadian employee or an US employee. So I don't want to give access to Indian employee role hierarchy because these are India specific employee self-service functions. Right. Now, these are not related to what do you call? These are not related to your these are not related to your Canadian employee role, right? So what do you do in those cases? In those cases, you have to copy the employee role, whichever you want to add, a role hierarchy you have to copy and remove from that role hierarchy the Indian employee related roles. Then you add that copied role to the then you add that copied role to that particular user, then that user will not have access to the Canadian employee related, Indian employee related functions. So that's how you manipulate these things. Okay. So come over here, go to tools, go to security console. So how do you copy a role over here? It can be any role. Okay. Now you want to search for specific roles. You just search for those specific roles so that you get limited amount of results. Let's say you have employee abstract role. So I just search for this abstract role over here. I can export the role hierarchy over here. Okay. I can also see it in circular fashion. I can see it as a list. Okay. Or I can see it, I can see it as a graph over here, or I can see it as a list like this. I can see it as a graph over here like this. So this role inherits some privileges at the end, or it also inherits some additional predefined roles, and it also has some aggregate privileges. Okay, so the role hierarchy, whichever you see, it will have a lot of information which it gives you. Now you can also see what are the privileges which this role gives access to. Now, what are privileges? We'll talk about those. Privileges are verb related words, okay, actions which you can perform, what privilege you get, what authority you get to do. So anything which starts with access, change, run, view, manage, right, delete, create, all these are action oriented words, right, in grammar. So anything which starts with that, you see that they are privileges. And just like how abstract roles end with abstract, job roles end with job, duty roles end with duty, privileges end with privileges, they end with priv as such. Okay, they end with priv over here. Now you can only add the roles, but you cannot add the privileges to the user account. You cannot add any privilege directly, you can only add the roles. Okay, always you can only add, you can either add abstract job or duty roles or data roles also, but you cannot add privileges, they come directly with the job role. Then again you can ask me, how do I remember all these things? You don't have to remember, you just go through these things, keep this with you. So any job role which you search over here, it gives you access to the role hierarchy, it gives you access to what are the duties of that particular job role, it gives you what are the aggregate privileges. Okay, it gives you access to what are the privileges you get on that particular when you add this job role, and what are the data security policies for each of the function which you have. Okay, so all these things are available over here: job role, abstract role, duty role. Okay, everything you can find it from here for all the modules, whether it is payroll or recruiter or time and labor or workforce schedule or IT security manager. Okay. Then you have HCM application implementation or integration specialist job role, wellness manager role, okay, compensation related things, cash manager, benefits related thing, HCM related thing, okay. Then you have line manager, which is the reporting manager. So this security reference in HCM is there publicly available in every release. You can review this to understand what is the hierarchy and what new duties, what privileges have been added in every new release. You can find it from what's new. Okay, you don't have to worry about by hurting all these things. All right. So just understand that every role is a hierarchy in nature. You can export these roles. You can see the roles. You can see the privileges which come with this role. Now, if you want to see the users who have access to this role, then you can also show the users logins. It will show you who have access to these roles. Now, this role, if you see the role code here is aura underscore per. That means all these users are having the predefined employee role. Now, if somebody says it is not aura underscore, but it is per underscore employee abstract, right? Then it means that that is a custom role. Anything which doesn't start with aura underscore is a custom role. So when you search for the roles, you start with aura underscore. But when you search for privileges, you remove that aura and then search with the privileges. So for example, if I want to search for all the privileges which are there in human resources, then I search for the privileges. You see, there are 450 privileges which come through either some of the tasks or whatever it is. Okay. Then you have the payroll related privileges. You search with pay underscore, access my pay, right? Me pay. If you want to give access to me pay, then you see you need this privilege. Now, this comes with the employee role automatically. And if you see these actions over here, you cannot edit, you cannot copy, you cannot simulate. So privileges are leaf related thing. Even when you copy a role also, the privilege will move as is, but there will not be created a copy of the privilege in the copied role. Okay, so like this, any module, right? You should know just the 3-letter keyword how to search. So you can see benefits, you have these privileges, then compensation. Then if you want to see F&D related privileges, so F&D diagnostics, dashboard, attachment certification manager, access user roles and privileges, administrate sandbox. So somebody who needs to be given access to sandbox, they must have this administration privilege on the sandbox. Now, you should know this privilege. It comes via which role? Does it come via application implementation consultant, application implementation administrator? So if it comes via that role with that privilege, then adding that role will give you access to this privilege. You cannot add the privilege directly. Okay, so like this, you can just expand towards privileges when you search for anything, and you can see this one. So so any doubts today in whatever we have taken? So I didn't cover data role today. I should have covered. I'll cover tomorrow. Okay, please remind me. We'll start with data role tomorrow. So what are the different types of roles? What a role gives access to, and what are the privileges? Okay, abstract role, job role, duty role, privileges. All these things are going to guard what you see on the UI. Okay, without proper configuration, you will not have proper access. Okay, so any doubts in today's sessions? Yes. Is it clear to everybody whatever we discussed on the security?
Yeah, clear.
Shiva,
Yes.
I saw one column called assignable code. What is that?
Assignable, that role, whoever has that, whichever user has that role, is that an assignable role? Can that user assign this role to others? That's what it says.
Okay, which means he can delegate. Is it related to delegation or is it something else?
Now, there are two things over there which you should understand. So what are those things are? We'll discuss this tomorrow. So if you see in workforce structures, you have something called role provisioning routes. Yeah, role mappings basically. So role mappings. So here, if you see, uh, based on certain conditions, you will say that some of the roles should be auto provisioned, or some of the roles should be self-requested, or some of the roles will be requested and some of the roles allowed for delegation. Okay, so auto provision means when I'm hiring a person in HR admin job, right, HR admin job role, I want that HR administrator job role to be assigned to that user automatically. So who says that these roles should be assigned automatically? These role mappings. So before even you bring in the employees into Fusion system, you create these role mappings and then say, if this employee belongs to this job, this grade, this position, or this location, then these are the roles which should come. Or if this employee is a manager, what type of manager? If this employee is a line manager, then obviously the line manager abstract role must be added or auto provisioned automatically. So I'll select this particular tick box over here. So role is allocated automatically to users who satisfy the condition. And similarly, users can request this role for themselves. Nobody needs to add. So those kind of roles, you mark them as self-requestable. And requestable users such as managers can allocate the role manually to other users. Delegation means users who have this role can provision it or delegate it to other users. Okay. So these role mappings are very important to be there before you bring in the users. So these are responsible for automatic creation of the roles when you hire the employee based on their job, league, department, and all those things.
One other thing, without punching in the first couple of characters into any of these fields, can we do a blind search?
No, there is a minimum search characters. There is a minimum search characters which is there for some of the work structures. It is there in enterprise HCM information. When we go to enterprise, that is the first topic in the global HR. We'll see that you have minimum search characters over there. So for some of the workforce structures, you can see those minimum search characters. Quickly, I'll just show it over here. And wherever there is a single star, it is mandatory. Wherever there is a double star for the fields, at least one of those fields must be keyed in for searching on that field. We'll discuss this enterprise related thing. Don't worry about these. So at the bottom, you have workforce structures, minimum search characters. So when you're searching an organization, grade, grade ladder, grade rate, job, job family, location, and position, because these are workforce structures, you give the number of characters you want to allow for searching. So I can give different number of characters for different work structures over here. So if I give for job, if I give 2, then minimum 2 characters are required for searching a job on manage job task. Okay, if I give grade as 3, then I have to give minimum 3 characters to search for the grade on manage grades page. Okay, that is how it works. And wherever there is a double star, yes, that is mandatory. One of the parameter is mandatory to give for searching. And wherever there is a single star on the page, then it is mandatory to search. There is no option over there. And does that answer?
Yep.
So any other doubts, guys?
No, Shiva, I have one question.
Yeah.
When you created user, there was one checkbox mentioning something about enabling REST APIs. May you know what was that?
REST API, if you want this user to access, be able to access REST API. So let's say you have some REST clients on your laptop. Now this environment is a server, it has some REST services on it. Now through that user account which you have created, if you want to access some of the REST services, that user with which you are accessing the REST services on this environment should have the roles which are related to the REST services. Okay, otherwise you will not be able to access. So if you see over here, every role which you see has some REST services, certain things. So if any user has this role, they will get this REST service, and using that user, you can access that REST service. Now, if this role hierarchy does not contain this, or maybe you have removed all the REST services, then in the role hierarchy, when I say remove, then you cannot access. So that is all for the REST API related thing.
Okay. Does that mean only that data will be exposed via APIs?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, guys, start creating your user accounts and then start adding the roles with this information. We'll continue tomorrow. I will require, 1 or 2 more classes for security more. And once we finish security, we'll go into FSM export and import, and then we'll start with global HR. So now after these things, right, you will have a proper understanding of why you are seeing certain things on the UI is because of the roles. And we didn't talk about data security today. I will cover data security tomorrow. Okay. Then you will understand. Yes.
Shivan, this privileges are assigned to duties, and duties are duty roles, and duty roles are assigned to jobs, and then jobs are assigned to the users, right?
Not necessarily. You can have abstract roles also assigned to users, job roles also assigned to users, duty roles also assigned to users. It depends on what is your requirement. If somebody is a HR manager, I want to give all the HR manager job role to him. So that will give access to all the duties of HR manager. But if somebody is a HR analyst, but that HR analyst want to perform some duty, I don't want to give the entire HR specialist or HR manager role to that person for HR analyst. I will just give one of the duty role. So I just add only the duty role. That duty role will give access to only that tasks which can be performed with that duty. So it depends.
Okay.
What is it?
And can I assign a privilege to
No,
a job role? To a job role, not to a user?
no, these are all fixed. You cannot add anything.
Okay.
Siva, one
And
question.
Yes.
Sorry, Ram, to interrupt. As you said, we cannot copy or edit privileges. But when we are creating a customized role, then we can create new.
No, that's what I said. When you are
Okay.
creating a customized role, the privileges which are inbuilt in the role from which you are copying will move as is. The copy of the privilege will not get created, but the other roles and the inherited roles within that parent role, every role will have a copy which is created. I'll show you this copy thing tomorrow, the data security tomorrow. Okay, you will then understand. Okay, guys, thank you very much. We'll take more doubts tomorrow. I have to attend some other batch. Okay.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Shivan.
Thank you. We'll meet again tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. Bye.